Hey everyone, and welcome to another GameXplain discussion. I'm your host, Derek Bittner, and I'm joined today by Nintendon to give our thoughts on our playtime so far with Fire Emblem Warriors. So let's get started. Alright Don, so we've both been playing the European version of Fire Emblem Warriors for a little while now, and have both completed the game, but we're only able to talk about the first 5 chapters of the story, as well as the first 5 missions in history mode. So we're a little limited exactly the details that we can give on the game, but we can talk in broad overviews. So in those broad terms, what do you think so far of the game, Don?
I want to preface this by saying I do really like it. I do really enjoy it. I played through it twice now, both in Japanese and English, but where it sort of falters for me, it seems to follow more a standardized formula in its mission structure compared to, say, Hyrule Warriors.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that as well. There's a very select set of missions that you have as you go through the story mode, and you can still have fun with them. When they do change it up, when they do add that extra challenge, they do become a lot more interesting and challenging. There's one later on in the game that I actually had to restart over and over again in order to actually complete. And I'm pretty sure you have an idea of which one I'm talking about, just because I kept screwing up how I needed to be doing it. And that was like, it was frustrating, but it was also, okay, now I'm starting to really feel something for the game, because as it is, it's fun. It does the Dynasty Warriors formula very well and does a good job of implementing those Fire Emblem tropes and ideas from those series, but it still comes across as maybe a little bit lesser than Hyrule Warriors. I don't know for sure about that yet, because I need to play through a lot more. I've beaten the game as well, but I definitely want to spend a little bit more time with it before I come down hard that, yes, Hyrule Warriors is better.
I feel you. I think at the end of the day, there are two sides to it that make me prefer Hyrule Warriors a little bit. I think the first side of it is some of the character choices made, and I'm not gonna go specifically into later characters because maybe you want to explore them more yourself. Not that we can talk about them exactly anyway. But as far as those concerned, there are some characters that use the same moves, a couple of them, and I think that's sort of not done in a Warriors game. And I play a lot of them. I played the Dragon Quest one, I played Warriors Orochi, I played Hyrule Warriors, and I think that in all of my time playing Warriors games, I've not mentioned or seen a lot of times where characters are almost completely similar. And that sort of annoys me. You just sort of give them throwaway spots in the roster, and just to fill up a roster, and I don't necessarily think that's the right idea. On the flip side, there are plenty of characters that I'm completely fond of. Like, the female main character, Liliana, is awesome. She plays really well, and her slices are really impressive.
I've noticed that as well. Basically, the way I can describe it to people is if that a character has the same mode of transportation and the same weapon, they will play exactly like each other. And the only differences you'll see is in their awakening mode and their specials. Like, that's where you get their sort of personality in there. And of course their quotes and everything else, they do stick to that character's personality. But otherwise, their basic stuff that you're doing as you're fighting through the hordes of soldiers is essentially the same. And that does lower, I don't know, it sort of kills it for you, because you don't feel that uniqueness when you go from character to character to character. And I've seen it to a slight degree, at least in the Dragon Quest Heroes, because you had the 2 main characters again play pretty much the same, as well as one of the other characters they had. He was kind of the same, but they also had elements to them that they made them feel even just a little bit more different than they are here. They still have those same elements, it's just those special moves where their uniqueness comes out, and that is a bit of a bummer, especially when, I don't know about you, but managing this huge roster is kind of a pain in the butt.
Yeah, it is. There are a lot more things they have to deal with, especially when it comes to characters and leveling up, and so ensuring that they have all of the moves, all of the little things that you need to do with that ranking system. At the same time, like I said, most of the characters are fine to deal with. It just, you will likely find your preferences like a good number of missions in.
Yeah, you'll immediately know which ones you like best and all that. I've been trying to like evenly level all of my characters to try to give them all a little bit of love. Haven't played as all of them yet though, because it's very easy to have characters that you don't play as level up, and you're like, well, I want to get these lower characters up to that point, and best way to do is to play as them. And so I haven't played as every single character yet, but it's still one of those things where because I did that, Liana, who I chose as my main character, is 15 levels ahead of everybody else. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I had the same problem. I think that my Liliana was halfway through the game like 20 levels higher than the rest of them. And maybe that's a big problem, because when new characters get introduced, they take on the level of the lowest character in your selection. So you will have to work them up if you like them, which means more grindy work for you to do. And especially in some of the scenarios in history mode where certain levels are required, that can be sort of a pain in the butt. The thing is, with story mode as a whole, I think that how it starts for me is how like the story mode opens with you two having two children of this lost kingdom that need to step in the footsteps of their father. No one wants to be king. They both just want to be knights. And then they have to go on their way to save their land. And it even that follows a really standard format for me. There were not really that many twists or turns.
No, I noticed that as well. The story is extremely standard, and I think the biggest problem with that, the thing that I noticed almost right away, is that there's no villain. There's an overarching threat, but there's no villain to latch onto other than the guest villains that pop up from the represented games. And that's not enough. That's not enough of a connection. You never really feel the threat. It's like, that character's in here. And to have that comparison to Hyrule Warriors again, it's not like when we had Sia and blanking on the other two's names, but those three original villains hounding you the entire time, and then of course Ganondorf making his presence known. Like, it's very strange to say, but I think Hyrule Warriors had the better plot.
Oh no, I think it had a better plot. Come to think of it, I also think that a new thing that we introduced comparison to the other Warriors game here, we have voice acting even in all the text boxes between levels. I would say that most of the dialogue is fine written. Like, I had no problems with that. I think that some of the voice delivery is a bit off, not too much, but a little bit.
Yeah, it comes across as fine, not spectacular. You're not going to get on the level of Fire Emblem Echoes or anything like that, but they're fine, and the dialogue does its job. There's a few characters stand out with their writing, but overall, it's basically, what's this character's attribute? Okay, that's what they're all about.
I don't, for example, thought that Rowan's English voice was really all that good.
No, Rowan is probably one of the weaker ones.
Because I had already had the Japanese version to compare, and it was like, Rowan's Japanese voice was completely plausible. I was like, I can get on board with it, and he was very apologetic when he did something wrong. Not so much so in the English version. He's more or less subtle that way.
Yeah. I don't want to rag on the game the entire time, though, because
no,
on a most basic level, it does play very well. And the elements that they bring in from Fire Emblem, at least most of them, I actually really enjoy. Like, the fact that you can pause the game at any time and command your troops, and they actually are effective. If you tell them to do something and they're ready for it, they will do that job very well. And the fact that you have essentially once you get to later missions, you essentially have 8 characters at your disposal, 4 that you can play as, 4 as you can use as backup, and you can pair them in any way to help with the support system as well, and then figure out which is the best way to deploy them and use them. That's some really good, clever stuff. There's a lot more. It feels like there's more strategy here, especially with how they implemented the weapon triangle, because it didn't seem like it would matter too much, But no, there is a big difference between fighting somebody that you have a disadvantage against compared to somebody that you do absolutely have an advantage against. And it's like you need to it really does matter what characters you bring in. You got to really look at the map and see, there's going to be a lot of these, so I should probably bring in this character to handle it. You can't just choose willy-nilly almost.
Yeah, purely from a gameplay perspective, I would say that Fire Emblem Warriors is a bit harder than the typical Warriors game. Mm-hmm. Especially you come across more tougher enemies in general, where you also really need to apply the weapon triangle to. Mm-hmm. That makes like encounters a bit more trickier. Even like key bosses are a lot to take in, especially if you don't have the right character at hand. But once you settle into its tropes and send characters on their merry way, you have a very effective system that doesn't slow down until the end of the mission.
It's very like holy crap, there's so much to keep track of when a mission starts and what I need to do, because that map is filled with stuff that needs to be done and characters to take care of and stuff like that. When it starts out, it's when you finally get it all cleared out, that's when you feel like I can breathe and finish this off.
Yeah, once you get closer to the final encounter, that's when you can sort of relax a little bit. But until that point, it actually is a quite challenging Warriors game. Especially how you need to position your characters every back and forth, need to send them to certain points to ensure that you still win the mission. Mm-hmm. And yeah, as long as they do admirably the job, and they do, you can get it done relatively well at a very well pace, I should say.
Yeah, at a good pace. Yeah, it makes sense. Like most missions took about 15 to 30 minutes, depending on how complex they were for me. It was, nice and easy, pick up and play pace. There are elements I think they handled better in this than they did in Hyrule Warriors. For example, collecting materials. Getting materials in Hyrule Warriors eventually just felt like such a grind, but most of the gold tier materials that you need to get, you get through support conversations. Like you don't actually get a support conversation until an actual support conversation until you reach the highest level with between two characters. But along the way, with each different rank, you get special rare items that are used for all the upgrades and everything else that you need to do. And I thought that was a much better way to handle that, where you get all the basic stuff from battles and a few of the rare things in history mode. But for the most part, it's all about those support conversations. It really it makes it worthwhile to do all those.
Yeah, it also makes it worthwhile to just pair up characters in general, because there's a reward at the end of the day for you. Even at that, like pairing up characters is super effective in this game. Mm-hmm. Like once you pair up a character, he can attack or defend with you. You do special attacks together. It's super helpful.
Mm-hmm. And the better support you have between the two of them, the faster you get those abilities. Like there's one where you can block a single attack and not take any damage. They'll be in there and do that, and you build it up by doing it more attacks. Well, the higher your support, the faster that'll build up, and it becomes incredibly useful.
Especially towards the end of the game, it's something that you really desperately need. Mm-hmm. Especially at that point, I was very grateful for supporting my characters as much as I did.
Yeah. I'd be disappointed in myself if I didn't have some sort of support level up happen during mine. I'll tell you what though, it's gonna take a long time to get everybody's support with everybody else. That's gonna be a fun grind.
It's gonna be a long time before you even accomplish that.
Yep, I'm already trying to work towards it. It's like, oh boy, here we go.
On that front, there is also a history mode.
Yes, we also have history mode, and again, I think this is better structured than Hyrule Warriors. Hyrule Warriors, they made it kind of like the classic games where you had to collect items and to order to unlock all this stuff, and there's all these special conditions, and that's not the case here. Instead, here's your battles. You can automatically go through them. It's just like there's certain things to blocking you off to getting to later ones, so it feels like more of a progression. And
yeah,
I don't know. I like the structure of it.
It feels like how you would progress across a Fire Emblem map. It has a traditional art of the Fire Emblem games when you're moving across the map, which is really nice. Mm-hmm. And you just go from battle to battle. You just clear the field and slowly work your way up to its conclusion.
Mm-hmm. And so far, most of the variety seems to be in history mode. I don't think I've encountered all the different types of battles you can have in there. It really did just I don't know. I feel like history mode is where you're going to have the most fun.
Yeah, they get pretty rough. After like 5 missions or so, I got one where we just basically needed to fend our keep because just a slew of harsh enemies came our way, ended with a couple of characters from the game. And it was just so incredibly hard. I had to do it like 2 or 3 times. But it was so worth it to do it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to diving in more because I don't know, there's something just a little bit more satisfying about that aspect, and I don't know, I can see myself really enjoying it. Now, actually, another thing I wanted to think of: did you play on classic mode or casual mode?
In the Japanese version, I played casual, and in the English version, I played classic.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you actually lose any characters while you were playing classic?
I lost one of them.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is that you basically, the character becomes permanently injured and you can't use him or her ever again.
Mm-hmm. Except that there is a way to revive them and you can use them again. And what you basically have to do is pay a huge amount of money. In my case, I lost Lissa. I just didn't realize that she had a bad matchup when I was off fighting somewhere else, and I went back to her and she was like 2 hits and she was down. That's how much the weapon triangle really matters in this game. So I'm like, all right, well, I get to see exactly what I need to do in order to revive her, because I did see a revival thing. So I'm like, all right, I can handle this. I looked, I had about 375,000 gold at the time, and it cost 300,000 to bring her back, as well as 10 gold materials. And I looked at that and I'm like, no, I don't need this. I don't feel like there's enough of a reward like the regular like the mainline Fire Emblem games, to warrant me needing to use up, especially when it's much more of a grind to get these type of materials. I'm like, nope, I'm not. I just switched myself immediately back to casual mode to revive her. That way I don't have to waste materials, because I don't feel like that extra challenge is worth it to me. But that's my own thoughts. I mean, do you feel that's worthwhile to you?
I think it's definitely worthwhile, especially as a person who already played for it, because it even requires me to be even more strategic. Like, I want to keep every character alive, so I need to keep every single move in mind. So I need to check if there are no characters on the map that are weak against that specific character. It becomes a really interesting challenge.
And I think that challenge personally remains when you even in casual mode, because if the character falls, they're out of the battle. All of a sudden you have less coverage, and if that's happening early on, you can get into some really bad situations.
Yeah, I know. At the same time, I feel that it's more impactful when you know you can't use that character again.
Yeah, or at least it's going to cost you a lot to get them back.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll be curious how people fall on that decision. I'm not sure.
I think that most people will end up using casual mode just because it doesn't really matter in the end of the day. I just found it a more challenging option when you already have played through it, like me. So I went through hard on Classic and had a really good time for a second time.
Cool. That's awesome. I guess before we start wrapping things up here, which resolution did you play at? Did you choose quality or performance?
I chose performance.
Performance, okay. And
yeah,
I'll be honest, I went with quality. I know everybody's probably going to pick performance and all that, but on my TV, looking at the game being played, like, I actually can see the quality dip when I play in 720p rather than 1080p. And for a Warriors game, I don't really need 60 frames per second. I think it looks fine as is.
Oh, I will absolutely agree with you that you don't need 60 frames per second in a Warriors game. Like, most Warriors games are 30 frames per second, don't get me wrong. That being said, it was sort of a unique experience to play in 60 frames per second. So that's why I went with it. Like, any other instance, if it was just 1080p 30 frames per second, I would have agreed with that and said, fine, that's totally okay with me. But because the option is there, I just decided to flick it on, just because I want to have the weirdness of playing a Warriors game in 60 frames per second.
Yeah, I can see myself definitely using that mode when I'm in handheld mode, or doing all that, because the max resolution of the game of the Switch screen is 720p. So why not at that point? So, but I'm curious where most people are going to fall on that one. I have a feeling I'm the odd one out just because I want that visual quality there.
Oh no, I think that most Warriors fans will choose 1080p 40 frames per second.
Oh, okay.
Like, no questions asked. Like, all of the games play exactly the same way, and that's how they can feel the difference between the various Warriors games. That makes sense. But for me, I just wanted to have the weird experience, just to see what it's like.
Makes sense. Well, any other thoughts on Fire Emblem Warriors so far with your time so far?
Like I said, I enjoyed it like quite a lot. There are some problems with it, like we can't ignore them. But overall, I would say that yeah, if you want to have a good time and you like Fire Emblem enough that you want it in a Warriors form, here you go.
Yeah, that's why I fall. I still need time to fully formulate my thoughts and play more of history mode and all that. But right now, I feel like it's a game that is very fun to play, but it definitely has its issues. But also there's some ideas in there that I really like. So I'm curious where I'm going to end up falling once I actually go to write the review.
Yeah, I can feel you. Where it just shines for me, it's just where it applies like the Fire Emblem formula, where it adds strategic elements, and it actually being a very challenging game. Where it falters is just the story stuff and some of the character choices. Not all of them, just a couple.
Yeah, I agree. But alright, I think that covers it for our Fire Emblem Warriors discussion, so thank you for watching, and if you like this video, be sure to like us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. And Don, where can they find you at?
You can find me here if I do stuff sometimes.
Yep.
You can find me on Twitter at Nintendon, and I do a whole bunch of stuff there, so you can just find links there, I suppose.
Awesome. And of course, be sure to subscribe to GameXplain for more on Fire Emblem and other things gaming as well. Until next time, bye.